You glared at Nancy from the doorway, eyes narrowing. As she sat close to Jungkook, handing him the cup of coffee you had just prepared, you muttered under your breath, "I don't know why she always acts like this, always taking my chances with me." You clenched your fist, trying to hold back your frustration. Nancy turned to Jungkook with a smile. "Here is your coffee, Jungkook," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. Without even looking up from his laptop, Jungkook nodded. "Thanks. Just leave it on the table," he replied, his tone dismissive as he continued typing. But Nancy didn't just leave it. She sat down beside him on the couch, leaning closer as he worked. "Jungkook, look at this," she said, pointing at his screen with an eager look, though you could see her eyes stealing glances at him instead of the laptop. You forced yourself to keep calm and walked over, holding the small tray of snacks you had prepared. "Jungkook, I brought some snacks. You must be tired," you said, trying to sound casual. Jungkook looked up briefly, giving you a polite nod. "Thank you, Wine," he said simply before returning his attention to the screen. But as he stood there, Nancy slid even closer to him, practically hovering. She pretended to study the screen, her face inches from his. He watched as she placed her hand on the back of the couch. Vitally feeling ignored and frustrated. "I'll leave you both to your work then," you said tightly, turning and heading toward the staircase. As you walked away, you could feel Nancy's eyes on you, and just as you raised your steps, you caught her smirking. Once you were upstairs, you sank onto the bed, feeling both hurt and annoyed. It had only been 3 months since you married Jungkook, and despite being his wife, it felt like Nancy was more of a priority in his life than you were. You knew your marriage was more of a formality. Jungkook had agreed to marry you at his mother's request after she met you at the orphanage where you grew up. She liked you, admired your kindness, and had somehow convinced him to marry you. Jungkook was distant, cold, and polite at best. While you understood that the marriage had been arranged more for his mother's sake, you couldn't help but feel a little wounded every time he brushed you off, and Nancy, she was constantly around, claiming she was just a close friend and a board member of his company, but you sensed her intentions went beyond friendship. Your thoughts were interrupted by the sound of laughter from downstairs. You frowned, feeling a pang in your chest. You couldn't take it anymore, determined to at least try and be there for Jungkook. You went back down, hoping he might appreciate your support. As you reached the living room, you heard Jungkook's voice, low and calm, as he explained something on his screen. "So, if you look at the projections here," he was showing Nancy the details on his laptop, unaware of her lingering gaze. Stealing yourself, you cleared your "Jungkook, I thought you might like some tea," you said, holding a fresh cup. This time he looked up. "Oh, thank you, Wine," he said, taking the cup from you. But just as you handed it over, Nancy leaned even closer to him, acting as if she couldn't hear him properly. "Could you repeat that part again, Jungkook?" she asked, glancing briefly at you with an almost dismissive look before focusing back on him. You tried to keep your expression neutral, but it was getting harder. Jungkook obviously nodded and repeated his point to Nancy, while she listened with an intense focus that felt all too personal. After a few moments, Jungkook finally seemed to notice the tension in your posture. He raised an eyebrow, glancing between you and Nancy. "Is everything all right?" he asked, sounding genuinely confused. You forced a smile. "Yes, everything is fine. I just thought I would check in since you've been working so long, but I can see you are busy." Nancy cut in, flashing a bright smile. "Oh, Ryan, we're just doing some work. No need to worry." Her tone was light, but the look she gave you felt smug. You swallowed, resisting the urge to snap back. "I'll leave you to it too then," he muttered, turning back towards the stairs. But before you could walk away, Jungkook called after you, "Wine, wait." You paused, surprised, and turned to face to him. He looked thoughtful, as if finally noticing something was off. "Are you okay?" The simple question made your heart skip a bit. Maybe he did care, even if just a little. You nodded, offering a small smile. I'm fine, just thought you might need a break, but I will let you get back to work. He nodded slowly, looking like he wanted to say more, but Nancy quickly interjected. Jungkook, don't forget, we have that meeting tomorrow. We should go over the details tonight. He glanced at her, seeming slightly torn, but then nodded. You're right, let's finish up then. Your heart sank as you watched him turn back to Nancy, the moment between you slipping away. You knew he was dedicated to his work and that Nancy was an important part of it. But it hurt to feel like a stranger in your own marriage. You went back upstairs, feeling defeated. Lying in bed, you tried to hold back your tears. You knew you couldn't change Jungkook's feelings overnight and maybe he would never feel anything for you, but you couldn't help wishing he would at least see you recognize the effort. As you closed your eyes, you reminded yourself that you married him because his mother believed in you, saw something worth loving in you. Maybe one day Jungkook would see that too. Until then, you would just have to endure these small moments, hoping they might someday mean something to him. You sighed as you stood under the warm stream of the shower, letting the water cascade over you. It was your attempt to wash away the frustration of earlier, to find some peace from the constant sting of being overshadowed by Nancy. Why does she always have to be there? You thought bitterly, rubbing your arms under the spray. After a while, feeling a little calmer, you stepped out of the shower, wrapping a towel around your body. You grabbed another for your hair but decided to fix it later. You wanted to quickly go to the mirror and check your flushed face. As you stepped out of the bathroom, humming softly, you didn't immediately notice Jungkook. He was by the wardrobe, bent slightly as he rummaged through it, muttering to himself, "There is that pile." Your eyes widened as you froze in place. Oh no, you thought, suddenly hyper-aware of your state. You instinctively tightened the towel around yourself and began to step back toward the bathroom, praying he wouldn't turn around. But as you moved your damn feet, you cried out as your balance gave way, your body tilting backward. In a flash, Jungkook turned, his reflexes sharp. He lunged forward and caught you in his arms, his hands firmly gripping your waist to steady you. Your heart pounded as you looked up. Your eyes locked, and the world seemed to stand still. The sound of your breathing mingled with the soft hum of the air conditioning. His dark brown eyes held yours, a flicker of concern in them, but there was something else too. Are you okay? He asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. You nodded, unable to form words. The warmth of his hands on your waist and the closeness of his face made your cheeks burn. Water dripped from your wet hair, trailing down your cheeks. Jungkook's gaze softened as his eyes moved across your face. A strand of wet hair had fallen onto your cheek, obstructing his view. Without thinking, he reached up and gently brushed it aside. Your hair, it's all over your face, he murmured, almost to himself. His touch lingered for a second too long and your breath hitched. You were so lost in the moment that you didn't notice the footsteps approaching the room. Jungkook, Jungkook. Nancy's voice shattered the bubble around you. Both of you snapped out of your trance, straightening up abruptly. Your heart still raced as you quickly tightened the towel around yourself, suddenly feeling exposed. Jungkook turned toward the door, his expression shifting to surprise. Nancy, you? What are you doing here? He asked, his tone slightly flustered. Nancy stepped into the room, her gaze flickering between the two of you before settling on you with a sharp, jealous glint. I was waiting for you downstairs, thinking you would bring the pie. When you didn't come, I decided to check myself, she said, her voice sweet, but her eyes betraying her irritation. Oh, I see, Jungkook said, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. He glanced at the file in his hand. I found it, let's go. He turned back to you briefly, his lips curling into a faint, almost apologetic smile. Be careful next time, he said softly, his tone gentle. You nodded, still too stunned to respond properly. Nancy meanwhile narrowed her eyes at you before quickly masking her expression with a tight smile. Let's go, Jungkook, she said pointedly, tugging at his arm. As the two of them left the room, you caught Nancy's lingering glare. Her thoughts were almost visible in her expression. I won't let you two get closer. The door closed behind them, and the silence in the room felt deafening. Slowly, a chuckle escaped your lips as you replayed the moment in your mind. The way Jungkook caught you, the way his eyes softened as he looked at you, and how he brushed your hair aside, all of it felt like a dream. You touched your cheek, realizing how they felt. Did that really just happen? You whispered to yourself, your lips curling into a small, genuine smile. Despite Nancy's interference, despite Jungkook's cold attitude, most of the time this moment was yours. And for the first time in moments, you felt a flicker of happiness, a tiny precious moment you could hold on to. After a while, you decided to head downstairs. The tension from earlier still lingered, but you reminded yourself to stay composed. As you reached the living room, you saw Nancy packing her belongings. Her oval, sweet voice filled the room as she turned to Jungkook. Jungkook, can you drop me off at home? She asked, clutching her bag tightly. Jungkook barely looked up from his phone, his tone indifferent. What happened to your car? He asked, clearly not interested in her request. It's at the mechanic shop. There was some trouble this morning, Nancy explained, glancing at him expectantly. You crossed your arms, immediately suspicious. You knew her too well by now, and you could sense her true intentions. Why can't you just book a cab? You asked sharply, tilting your head. Nancy turned to you, her polite smile faltering for a moment. As she glared at you before she could respond, Jungkook spoke. Yes, Ryan, you're right. A cab would be easier, he said, agreeing with you. Nancy's face stiffened, but she quickly recovered. What is this, Jungkook? She whined, her voice filled with fake hurt. Can't you help me after all the times I have helped you with those cases at work? Her tone was exaggerated, and you resisted the urge to roll your eyes. She was clearly trying to guilt trip him. Nancy sighed dramatically and grabbed her bag, pretending to be upset. It's okay, I'll leave. I don't need your help, she muttered, her voice trembling as if she was hurt. She turned to leave, taking slow, deliberate steps towards the door. Jungkook sighed, his expression unreadable as he grabbed his car keys. Okay, I'm sorry, let's go, I will drop you off, he said, walking toward the door. Nancy smirked subtly as she looked back at you, her gaze triumphant. You stood there, fuming silently, even though she didn't say anything outright, her actions spoke volumes. She doing all this just to get closer to him, you thought angrily. Jungkook glanced at you briefly before stepping outside. Nancy followed him, and as she left, she gave you one last smug look. You clenched your fists, feeling the heat of anger rise within you. In the car, Jungkook drove silently, his eyes fixed on the road. Nancy sat beside him, her face calm but her mind racing. The silence stretched between them until Nancy spoke, her words breaking the stillness. Jungkook, why don't you divorce Ryan? That question hung in the air like a bombshell. Jungkook's grip on the steering wheel tightened, and he turned to her briefly, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. What are you asking, Nancy? Nancy hesitated for a moment, pretending to choose her words carefully. I have been watching you for months now, ever since she came into your life. You barely talk to her, and you two don't even act like a real couple. Jungkook's jaw clenched as he processed her words. His face remained cold, but there was a spark of irritation in his eyes. Who told you there is no love between us? He asked, his voice firm. Nancy blinked, taken aback. Well, it's just what I see. Cutting her off, Jungkook continued, his tone unwearying. I love her. I just need time to express it properly. Our marriage happened under unusual circumstances, but that doesn't mean my feelings aren't real. Nancy's hand clenched into a fist on her lap, though she forced a smile. But And about wine, Jungkook interrupted again, his gaze still fixed on the road. She loves me, I can feel it in her actions and see it in her eyes. Nancy's stomach churned as his words sank in. She hadn't expected him to defend you so strongly. She thought she had a chance to drive a wedge between you two, but hearing this shattered that illusion. Still, she wasn't ready to give up. "You're single like that," she said. "I see, but you should know, Jungkook, I'm always here for you." Jungkook glanced at her briefly, his expression softening just a little. "Nancy," he said after a pause, "why don't you find someone for yourself? How long do you plan to stay single?" Nancy's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly masked her frustration with Jungkook. "I just haven't found the right person yet," she said, her voice light. Jungkook nodded, his attention returning to the road. The rest of the drive was filled with silence, the earlier conversation still weighing heavy in the air. Finally, they arrived at Nancy's house. Jungkook stopped the car and handed her bag to her. "Here you go," he said, his tone polite but distant. Nancy lingered for a moment. "Why don't you come inside for some coffee?" she offered, her tone sweet. Jungkook shook his head. "No, it's late. I should head back home," he replied firmly. Nancy's smile wavered, but she nodded. "All right, thank you for the ride," she said, stepping out of the car. As Jungkook drove away, her gaze darkened. "I won't let Ryan win. This isn't over," Nancy thought. Back at home, Jungkook entered quietly, heading upstairs. "You were sitting in bed trying to read a book, but your mind was elsewhere." When he walked in, your eyes met, and for the first time in a long while, he saw something softer in his expression. "Hey," he said simply before disappearing into the wardrobe. You stared after him, your thoughts still lingering on the strange encounter earlier. Despite everything, a small part of you felt hopeful that maybe, just maybe, things could change. Jungkook entered the bedroom quietly and changed into his usual comfy clothes, a plain white t-shirt and grey sweatpants. His damp hair still clung to his forehead as he towel dried it lightly. Once ready, he walked toward you, his tone softer than usual. "Have you had dinner?" he asked, his voice cutting through the stillness of the room. You glanced from the book you were pretending to read. "No, I haven't. I was waiting for you," he replied honestly, setting the book aside. Jungkook paused for a moment, looking at you thoughtfully. "Let's go," he said, his tone steady. "We leave together." Your heart skipped a beat at his words. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was enough to make you feel good. Smiling softly, you followed him downstairs. The two of you sat across from each other at the dining table. The atmosphere was calm yet comforting. For the first time in a long while, you were having dinner together. Usually, he would come home late, buried under mountains of work, but tonight felt different. You cherished every moment, stealing glances at him as he quietly ate his food. The simple act of sharing a meal made the night feel special, a moment you tugged into your heart. 2 days passed, and Nancy continued her relentless efforts to grab Jungkook's attention. She lingered around his workspace, made excuses to talk to him, and even tried bringing him coffee. However, Jungkook remained indifferent, giving her no attention. You noticed this change and couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction. Still, you knew Nancy wouldn't give up easily. One evening, you sat alone on the couch in the living room. The clock ticked past 11, and Jungkook hadn't returned home yet. The rain outside poured heavily, the rhythmic sound of raindrops hitting the windows only amplifying your anxiety. You checked your phone for the 10th time and dialed his number again. "Please pick up," you whispered, your voice trembling. The call went straight to voicemail. His phone was switched off. Worry gnawed at you. You had even called his office, but they informed you that Jungkook had left hours ago. The pit in your stomach grew as countless scenarios played out in your mind. "Jungkook, where are you?" you whispered, glancing toward the door as if willing to walk to him. Why aren't you answering my calls? You clasped your hands together, silently praying for his safety. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, then suddenly the doorbell rang. You shot up from the couch and rushed to the door, your heart pounding. It's him, you thought, relief washing over you. You swung the door open, only to freeze in shock. Jungkook was there, but he wasn't alone. Nancy stood beside him, supporting his weight. As his arm draped over her shoulders, he was soaking wet, his clothes clinging to his body as if he had been out in the rain for hours. What happened to him? He asked, her voice shaking with concern. As your eyes darted to Nancy, Nancy rolled her eyes, her voice sharp. Will you move aside, or do you plan on interrogating me all night? Her words stung, but you pushed your anger aside. Jungkook needed help. Without saying a word, you stepped forward and took his other arm, helping her carry him inside. Together, you led him to the bedroom and gently laid him on the bed. Once he was settled, you turned to Nancy. What happened to him? You asked again, your tone more controlled, but still laced with worry. Nancy sighed dramatically as if she was already exhausted from explaining. His car broke down and he got caught in the rain, she said, crossing her arms. He was drenched and passed out from exhaustion. That's why I brought him here. You knelt beside the bed, brushing the damp hair from Jungkook's face. His cheeks were flushed, his breathing shallow. Jungkook, you whispered, your heart aching at the sight of him like this. As you reached out to check his forehead, Nancy grabbed your wrist, stopping you mid-motion. Where do you think you're going? She demanded, her tone harsh. You don't know how to take care of your husband, but now you suddenly want to act concerned. Her words hit like a slap. You turned to her shocked. Who told you I don't care for him? You shot back, your voice tone. And why do I have to explain myself to you? Nancy smirked, her confidence unworried. Because I'm his best friend, she said, her tone dripping with superiority. And I'm his wife, you retorted, standing your ground. Nancy chuckled, the sound cold and dismissive. Wife? She repeated mockingly. Jungkook never accepted you as his wife. He doesn't love you at all. Her words felt like a dagger to your chest, but you refused to back down. I know he loves me, you said firmly. I believe in him. Do you have any proof to say otherwise? Nancy smirked widened as she pulled out her phone. Oh, I do, she said smugly. She pressed play on a recording. Jungkook's voice echoed through the room. I don't love wine. Because of my mother, I'm stuck in this marriage. I will divorce her once we complete 6 months. The words hit you like a freight train. Your breath hitched, tears streaming down your face as your heart shattered. You stared at Nancy, unable to process what you had just heard. Nancy, do you believe me now? Nancy asked, her voice calm but victorious. He doesn't love you, so there is no need for you to take care of him. Leave. I will handle this. You wanted to fight back, to scream that it wasn't true, but the weight of his words crushed any will you had. Without saying another word, you turned and left the room, your shoulders trembling with silent sobs. As you closed the door behind you, Nancy smiled to herself, her eyes glinting with triumph. Meanwhile, you walked away, your heart broken, unsure of what to do next. Nancy smirked as she glanced at her phone. Poor one, she believed that fake recording. She doesn't know it was generated with AI voice cloning. She muttered under her breath. She smirked again, her mind swirling with schemes. Picking up her phone, she called a doctor to treat Jungkook. Meanwhile, in your bedroom, you sat by the window, staring into the pouring rain. Your heart felt heavy with sadness, the words from the recording replaying in your mind. He doesn't love me, it's all because of his mother. Tears streamed down your face as you tried to process your emotions. Though it hurt to believe he didn't love you, your concern for Jungkook remained. Why do I love him so much when he doesn't feel the same? You wondered, clutching your chest. Nancy, on the other hand, was reveling in her victory. Now I have planted the poison. Wine will leave before Jungkook wakes up, and then I'll make him mine, she thought, watching over Jungkook with self-esteem. The next morning, Nancy sipped her coffee as Jungkook stared awake. He opened his eyes, his face pale but alert. Nancy, he asked groggily, sitting up on the bed. Nancy immediately set her coffee cup aside and approached him. Yes, Jungkook, how are you feeling now? You scared me last night, she said with faint concern. Jungkook frowned, looking around. What are you doing here? Where is Ryan? Nancy's expression darkened briefly before she put on her act. Jungkook, I'm sorry, but Ryan didn't want to take care of you. She slept in another room even after I told her how unwell you were. When I asked her to stay, she said, why should I care for someone? Jungkook's eyes widened in disbelief. Ryan said that, he asked, his voice filled with doubt. He shook his head. No, that doesn't sound like her. Ryan would never say something like that. Nancy tried to stop him. Jungkook, wait, you're still not feeling well. You need rest. Ignoring her protest, Jungkook stood up, determined to find you. Ryan, Ryan, he called out, heading toward the other bedroom. When he didn't find you there, he hurried downstairs. His heart sank when he saw you standing by the door with your luggage. Ryan, stop, he called out. Hearing his voice, you froze. Slowly turning around, you met his gaze. Jungkook, you whispered, tears welling in your eyes. Where are you going? He demanded, his voice laced with worry. You looked away, biting your lip. I'm leaving permanently. I will send you the divorce papers. Enjoy your life, Jungkook, you said, your voice breaking. Jungkook's heart shattered at your words. Divorce? He exclaimed, stepping closer. Why are you saying this? What's going on, Ryan? You wiped your tears angrily. Don't act like you don't know, Jungkook. I heard everything last night. You said you don't love me. You're only staying with me because of your mother. And after 6 months you will divorce me. Isn't that true? Jungkook stared at you stunned. Who told you that? I never said anything like that. You didn't, you asked confused, but I heard it with my own ears. Nancy appeared at the top of the stairs, looking nervous. You immediately turned to her. Nancy, did he really say those things you played last night? Nancy avoided your gaze, fidgeting with her hands. Answer me, he demanded, stepping closer. Caught in her lie, Nancy stammered. Before she could finish, you slapped her across the face with all your strength. The sound echoed through the room, leaving Jungkook and Nancy in shock. How dare you! You shouted, tears of anger streaming down your face. How dare you to ruin my marriage with your lies? Jungkook's jaw tightened as he realized the truth. Man, what's going on? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. You turned to him, explaining everything that had happened the night before, from the fake according to Nancy's cruel words. Jungkook's expression darkened with rage as he glared at her. You? He growled, stepping towards her. How could you do this? I trusted you, Nancy. I thought you were my friend, but you're nothing but a snake. Nancy clasped her hands together, pretending to feel more remorse. Jungkook, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please, give me one more chance. Enough, he thundered. You have lost my trust. I'm cutting all ties with you personally and professionally. Leave my house now. I don't want ever to see your face again. Nancy shot you a venomous glare before grabbing her bag and storming out. As the door closed behind her, Jungkook turned to you. His gaze softened as he reached for your hands. Vine, I'm so sorry for everything. I should have seen through her lies sooner. You shook your head. You don't have to apologize, Jungkook. You didn't know what she was planning. Jungkook took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. Vine, there is something I need to say. I know I haven't been the best husband. I have been distant and I haven't expressed my feelings. But it's not because I don't care about you. You looked up at him, your eyes sweating. What do you mean? I have never been good at expressing emotions, he admitted, his voice cracking. The way I was raised, the environment I grew up in, it made me put up walls. But one, please believe me when I say this, I do care about you more than I have ever cared for anyone. Tears welled in your eyes again, but this time they weren't from sadness. Jungkook, he cubed your face gently, his thumb brushing away your tears. I don't want to lose you, One. Please don't leave. I'll do better. I'll be better for you, for us. Your heart swelled with emotion as you nodded. I'm not going anywhere, Jungkook. I just need to know that you truly mean it. I do, he whispered, leaning his forehead against yours. You're the most important person in my life. I will never let anyone come between us again. Smiling through your tears, you wrapped your arms around him. He pulled you into a tight embrace, holding you as if he never wanted to let go. As he kissed your forehead tenderly, he murmured, I promise to always protect you. Why? No more doubts, no more lies, just us. You closed your eyes, feeling a sense of peace you hadn't felt in a long time. Just us. Thank you for watching.